I was working the front desk at a hotel in Amsterdam when an American couple walked up to me at 11:30 at night. They looked exhausted. The woman leaned on the counter and said they needed to check in. I pulled up their reservation. Everything looked fine. Then the man asked if we could help them with their bags. I said, of course. He smiled and said, great. And then he just stood there, staring at me. I stared back. After about 10 seconds of awkward silence, most channels would stop here and laugh at the culture shock. I don't. I trace why it happens. The systems behind the misunderstandings. If that's the kind of depth you look for, you'll want to subscribe now. This is where surface-level travel stories end, and real analysis begins. He pulled out his wallet and waved a €5 note at me. I realized what was happening. He was waiting for me to grab their bags so he could tip me. I told him we don't really do that here. He looked confused. His wife looked confused. They both looked at the €5 note like it had personally betrayed them. Another guest in Stockholm asked me where the nearest ATM was because she needed to get cash for tips. I told her she really didn't need cash for that. She insisted. Said she always tips her waiters. I explained that tipping isn't expected in Sweden. She looked at me like I'd just told her the earth was flat. She said, but how do the servers survive? I said they get paid actual wages. She stood there processing this information for a full minute before walking away, shaking her head. My cousin works at a train station in Brussels. An American tourist came up to him and asked what time the 3:15 train leaves. My cousin said 3:15. The guy asked again. My cousin repeated 3:15. The tourist got annoyed and said he needed to know the actual time, not the name of the train. My cousin blinked, pointed at the departure board, said the train that says 15:15 on the board leaves at 15:15. The guy stared at the board, stared at my cousin, then said, why don't you people just use normal time? My cousin said, we do. I watched an American woman in a cafe in Vienna try to order coffee to go. She kept saying she was in a rush, needed it fast. The barista made her an espresso, placed it in a tiny porcelain cup on a saucer. She looked at the cup, looked at the barista, asked where the lid was. The barista said there is no lid. She asked how she was supposed to take it with her. He said, you don't. You drink it here. She genuinely didn't understand. She said she had places to be. He said, then you drink it quickly. She stood there holding this tiny cup, looking completely lost. Eventually she sat down, drank it in 3 sips, left looking mildly offended that coffee could be consumed in under 2 minutes. If this kind of insight feels rare, that's because it is. Most people scroll past stories like these without ever connecting the dots. Subscribers here don't just watch, they decode culture. If that sounds like you already know where you belong. These moments happen every single day across Europe, and they're not mean-spirited. They're just cultural confusion playing out in real time. Americans arrive expecting things to work one way. Europeans expect things to work another way. And somewhere in the middle, chaos happens. My friend worked at a hostel in Prague. American guy checked in and immediately asked where he could buy a hairdryer. She pointed to the bathroom. Said there's one on the wall. He looked annoyed. Said no, he needed to buy his own because he didn't trust public hairdryers. She explained it wasn't public, it was just the hostel's hairdryer. He said he still wanted his own. She told him any electronics store would have them. He left. Came back 20 minutes later holding a hairdryer and looking furious. He couldn't plug it in. The prongs didn't fit. She had to explain that Europe uses different outlets. He asked why. She didn't have a good answer for that. He asked if she had an adapter. She did. He plugged in his American hairdryer with the adapter. It immediately sparked and died. Turns out, he didn't account for the voltage difference either. He spent €40 on a hairdryer that lasted 4 seconds. A waitress in Rome told me about a family that got upset because their pizza came unsliced. The dad actually flagged her down and asked if someone forgot to cut it. She said, no, we serve it whole. He asked how they were supposed to eat it. She brought them a knife and fork. He looked at the utensils like she'd handed him ancient artifacts. His teenage daughter took a photo of the whole pizza and posted it online with a caption about how Italians don't know how to serve food. The waitress saw the post later that week. It had gone semi-viral. Hundreds of Americans in the comments agreeing that unsliced pizza was inconvenient. I lived in Germany for 2 years. My neighbor was American. Nice guy, worked remotely. One Sunday morning, he started mowing his lawn at 9. By 9:15, 3 different neighbors had come outside to politely ask him to stop. He didn't understand. Said he was just doing yard work. They explained that Sunday is a quiet day. No loud activities. It's actually a law in many German towns. He laughed. Thought they were joking. They were not joking. Someone called the police. An officer showed up and very calmly explained the noise ordinance rules. My neighbor genuinely could not process this. He kept saying, "But it's my lawn." The officer agreed. Said, "Yes, it is your lawn, and you can mow it Monday through Saturday. Just not Sunday." He didn't mow again on a Sunday, but he complained about it for months. My sister worked at a tour company in Ireland. An American couple booked a day trip to see some castles. They showed up 15 minutes late. The bus had already left. They were upset. Asked when the next bus was. She said tomorrow. Same time. They asked if she could just call the bus back. She said no, the bus is halfway to the first castle by now. The woman said this was unacceptable. They had paid for a tour. My sister explained they had paid for a tour that left at 9. It was now 9:15. The husband asked if this was because they were American. My sister said no, it's because they were late. He asked if there was an Uber they could take to catch up to the bus. She said sure, if they wanted to pay €100 to chase a bus across the countryside. They left a 1-star review online saying Irish tour companies have no flexibility. A bartender in Barcelona told me an American ordered a beer at 4 in the afternoon, drank it, then asked what time dinner service started. The bartender said around 9. The guy laughed and said, "No, really, what time?" The bartender repeated, "Around 9 or 9:30. The American looked horrified, said, "What are we supposed to do until then?" The bartender suggested having another drink, or going for a walk, or having tapas. The guy said he didn't want tapas. He wanted dinner. The bartender said then, you wait until 9. He ended up sitting at the bar for 3 hours looking miserable. When he finally got his dinner at 9:30, he left another review online complaining that Spanish restaurants refuse to serve food at reasonable hours. My roommate in Copenhagen worked at a grocery store. An American woman came in looking for ranch dressing. He said they didn't carry it. She asked why not. He said it's not really a thing here. She said it's a salad dressing. How is it not a thing? He offered to show her the other dressings they had. She looked at the shelf, picked up 3 bottles, put them back, said none of them were ranch. He agreed. She asked if he could check in the back. He said there was no ranch in the back either. She left and came back the next day to ask again. Same conversation, same outcome. She genuinely believed that if she asked enough times, ranch dressing would materialize. I was on a train in Switzerland when an American guy asked the conductor if there was a cafe car. The conductor said no. The guy asked where he was supposed to get food. The conductor suggested buying something before boarding. The guy said he didn't know he needed to do that. The conductor shrugged. The train was only 90 minutes long anyway. The guy acted like he'd been asked to cross the Sahara with no supplies. He spent the entire ride complaining to his friend about how European trains don't care about customer service. Meanwhile, a Swiss family across the aisle had packed sandwiches and fruit and were eating quietly. Nobody thought this was unusual, except the American guy who kept glancing at them like they were survivalists. I worked at a museum in Athens. An American tourist asked me how long it would take to drive to Rome from here. I said, "You can't really drive. You'd have to take a ferry or fly." She looked at a map on her phone, zoomed way out, said it didn't look that far. I explained there's a whole sea in the way. She zoomed in a bit, saw the sea, looked disappointed, then asked if we had a bridge. I said no. She asked why not. I didn't have a great answer. She muttered something about how Europe should really invest in better infrastructure. A teacher from Boston came to London and asked someone at a pub how old the building was. The bartender said about 400 years. The teacher laughed and said no seriously. The bartender repeated, 400 years, give or take. The teacher stopped laughing, looked around the pub, touched the walls. He genuinely thought the bartender was exaggerating. Later that week, he saw a church built in the 1100s. He took a photo and sent it to his friends with the caption, "These people have buildings older than our entire country." His friends didn't believe him, thought he was making it up. My colleague in Paris had an American guest ask where the Eiffel Tower was. She told him. He asked if he could walk there. She said it depends on where you're staying. He said here, at the hotel. She said the hotel was about 5 kilometers away. He asked how far that was in miles. She said about 3 miles. He said, oh, that's nothing. He left to walk. Came back 40 minutes later drenched in sweat, asking why it felt like 10 miles. She explained that European cities aren't built on a grid. You don't walk in straight lines. He said American cities make way more sense. She didn't argue. A guy in Vienna asked me if people in Austria speak Austrian. I said, no, they speak German. He said, but this is Austria. I said, yes, and they speak German here. He said that was confusing. I agreed that it probably was if you weren't expecting it. He then asked if people in Germany speak Austrian. I said, no, they also speak German. He stared at me, asked how anyone keeps track of this. I said most of Europe functions this way. Lots of countries share languages. He said America only has English, and it's much simpler. I didn't mention Spanish or the 50 other languages spoken across the U.S. Didn't seem worth it. I watched a woman in Edinburgh argue with a tour guide about whether Scotland is part of England. The guide very politely explained that Scotland is part of the United Kingdom, but is not England. She said that's the same thing. He said it really isn't. She pulled out her phone and Googled it right in front of him. Read the results. Still didn't fully believe it. She said, but you all have the same money. He said yes, that's because of the United Kingdom. She said, so it's the same thing. He gave up, moved on with the tour. She spent the rest of the walk telling her husband that British geography was purposely confusing. A student visiting Denmark asked someone at a cafe how many kilometers it was to Sweden. The barista said you can see Sweden from here, pointed out the window. The student looked, saw water, saw land on the other side, asked if that was Sweden. The barista said yes. The student said, wait, how is another country that close? The barista explained that European countries are smaller and closer together. The student said Texas was bigger than most European countries. The barista agreed. Said yes, Texas is quite large. The student seemed pleased by this, like it was a competition he'd just won. I was at a train station in Belgium when an American asked me how many pounds the ticket cost. I said it's in euros. He said he knew that, but how much in pounds? I explained Belgium uses euros, not pounds. He said, but we're in Europe. I said yes. He said, and Europe uses pounds. I said no, the UK used pounds, but most of Europe uses euros. He processed this, then asked how much it was in dollars. I did the conversion in my head. Told him. He said that seemed expensive. I said train tickets usually are. He said Amtrak was cheaper. I'd never taken Amtrak, so I just nodded. A family in Italy asked their waiter how many ounces of pasta were in a dish. The waiter didn't know. He didn't measure pasta in ounces. The dad got frustrated, said he was trying to track his macros, needed to know the exact weight. The waiter said it was 1 portion. The dad said that wasn't specific enough. The waiter offered to bring a scale. The dad said yes. The waiter brought a scale. It measured in grams. The dad asked if they had one that did ounces. The waiter said no. The dad pulled out his phone and converted grams to ounces himself. Took about 5 minutes. The rest of the family waited. The waiter stood there holding the scale. Finally, the dad decided it was close enough to his target and said he'd order it. The waiter walked away looking exhausted. My friend in Portugal heard an American complain that the temperature was listed wrong on a sign. It said 32 degrees. The guy said, "It's not freezing out here." My friend explained it was Celsius. The guy said, "Why would you use that?" My friend said because most of the world uses Celsius. The guy said Fahrenheit made more sense. My friend asked why. The guy didn't have an answer, but insisted it just did. They stood there in 32 degrees Celsius heat, which is about 90 Fahrenheit, debating which system was more logical. Neither of them convinced the other. I worked at a restaurant in France. An American couple sat down and immediately asked for water. I brought them a bottle, sparkling. The woman said she wanted still. I brought still. She asked why I charged for water. I explained that bottled water costs money. She said in America water is free. I said here it is not. Her husband asked if they could just have tap water then. I said of course. Brought tap water. Free. They both stared at it suspiciously. Didn't drink it? Ordered sodas instead. Paid more for the sodas than the bottled water would have cost. A man in Spain asked for ketchup with his paella. The waiter paused, asked if he was serious. The man said yes. The waiter said they didn't have ketchup. The man asked why not. The waiter said, because you don't put ketchup on paella. The man said he puts ketchup on everything. The waiter said, not here you don't. The man got defensive, said he was paying for the meal so he should get to eat it how he wants. The waiter disappeared into the kitchen, came back with a tiny dish of ketchup, placed it on the table without a word. The man squeezed ketchup onto his paella. The waiter watched, walked away, told the kitchen staff. They all came out to look. The man ate his paella with ketchup, while 5 Spanish chefs watched in silent horror. My cousin worked at a bakery in Germany. An American woman came in and asked for a chocolate chip cookie. My cousin pointed to the cookie display, showed her 3 different kinds. The woman said no, she wanted a chocolate chip cookie. My cousin said those were chocolate chip cookies. The woman said they didn't look right. Too small, not enough chips. My cousin explained these were German-style cookies. The woman said she wanted American style. My cousin said this was Germany. The woman left. Came back an hour later asking if the cookies had been restocked. My cousin said no, same cookies. The woman bought one anyway, took a bite, said it was okay, but not what she expected. A waiter in Greece told me about a customer who got upset because the salad came with the main course instead of before it. The customer flagged him down, said the salad was supposed to come first. The waiter said in Greece salad comes with the meal. The customer said that was wrong. The waiter asked how a Greek restaurant serving food the Greek way could be wrong. The customer said because salads are appetizers. The waiter said not here. The customer insisted. The waiter gave up trying to explain. Just apologized. The customer still left a review saying the restaurant didn't understand proper meal courses. I was in a cafe in Amsterdam when an American asked if they could get their sandwich without butter. The person behind the counter asked why. The American said they didn't like butter. The worker looked confused, said the sandwich comes with butter. It's part of how it's made. The American said just leave it off. The worker said it wouldn't taste right. The American said that was fine. The worker made the sandwich without butter, handed it over looking personally offended. The American took one bite and said it was dry. The worker said, yes, because there is no butter. A tour guide in Budapest told me about a group of Americans who complained that lunch took too long. They'd gone to a traditional Hungarian restaurant, ordered a full meal, expected it to arrive in 15 minutes like fast food. It took 45 minutes. They were furious, kept checking their watches. One of them asked if they could get it to go so they wouldn't miss their next tour. The waiter said the food was almost ready. They waited. When it finally arrived, they ate quickly and left. Wrote a review saying Hungarian restaurants were inefficient. The restaurant had been operating the same way for 60 years. My roommate in Italy watched an American order a cappuccino after dinner. The barista hesitated, asked if he was sure. The guy said yes. The barista made it, served it. An older Italian man sitting nearby saw this and shook his head, muttered something in Italian. My roommate asked what he said. He said you don't drink cappuccino after a meal. It's too heavy. Only tourists do that. The American had no idea he'd just committed a coffee crime. drank his cappuccino happily. The Italian man kept shaking his head. A woman in Poland asked a waiter if the pierogi were gluten-free. He said no. She asked if they could make them gluten-free. He said no, pierogi are made with dough. She asked what else they had that was gluten-free. He listed some options. She said she really wanted pierogi, though. He said then she would have to eat gluten. She asked if he was sure they couldn't make an exception. He said he was very sure. She ordered a salad, spent the entire meal watching other people eat pierogi and looking sad. I saw an American family in Prague get confused about tipping again. They'd already paid the bill, left cash on the table, walked out. The waiter chased them down the street, waving the money. Thought they'd forgotten it. They said, no, that's your tip. He said they didn't need to tip. They insisted. He insisted back. They eventually convinced him to keep it. He walked back inside, looking bewildered, told his co-workers. They all agreed that Americans were very strange, but very generous. A bartender in Ireland had an American ask why the Guinness took so long to pour. He explained the settling process, said it's poured in 2 stages. The American said that seemed inefficient. The bartender said it's how you pour a proper Guinness. The American said in America they pour beer fast. The bartender said this isn't America. The American waited, got his Guinness, took a sip, admitted it was good, then asked if there was any way to speed up the process for next time. The bartender said no. I was back at that hotel in Amsterdam a few months after the tipping incident. Different American couple, same confusion. The man asked where he could rent a car to drive around the city. I asked why he wanted to drive in Amsterdam. He said to see the sights. I suggested a bike. He said he didn't bike. I suggested walking. He said that would take too long. I suggested the tram. He said he preferred driving. I explained that Amsterdam is built for bikes and trams, not cars. The streets are narrow. Parking is expensive and nearly impossible to find. He insisted he wanted a car anyway. I gave him the information for a rental company. He left, came back 3 hours later. He'd rented a car, spent 90 minutes stuck in traffic. Couldn't find parking, gave up, returned the car, lost money on the rental. He asked if I had a bike he could borrow. I pointed to the bike rental shop across the street. That's the thing about these stories. They're not about Americans being wrong or Europeans being right. They're about 2 completely different systems crashing into each other. Americans grow up in a country that works a certain way. Wide roads, free water, tipping culture, imperial measurements, dinner at 6. Then they land in Europe and none of those rules apply anymore. The roads are narrow. The water costs money. Nobody wants tips. Everything is metric. Dinner is at 9. It's disorienting. And Europeans aren't trying to be difficult. They're just living their normal lives. A barista in Vienna isn't refusing to put a lid on your coffee to be rude. That's just not how coffee works there. A waiter in Rome isn't trying to inconvenience you by serving whole pizzas. That's how pizza has been served for generations. A neighbor in Germany isn't reporting you for mowing on Sunday because they hate you. They're just following the law everyone else follows. The funny part is watching both sides try to make sense of each other. Americans thinking Europe is backwards for not having free refills. Europeans thinking America is chaotic for tipping everyone. Both are right from their own perspective. Both are confused from the others. These moments happen thousands of times a day across dozens of countries. An American asks for ranch dressing in Copenhagen. A European watches someone put ice in wine. Someone gets on a train without buying food first. Someone else mows their lawn on Sunday. Every single one of these moments is a tiny culture clash playing out in real time. And trust me, these stories never stop coming. Every hotel, every restaurant, every train station. There's always another American asking why the door doesn't have a screen. Always another European wondering why Americans need so much ice. The confusion is endless, and honestly, that's what makes it interesting. That learning curve never really ends. And that's exactly what I track here. Every week, new moments of cultural friction, new lessons about how the world actually works. Subscribing doesn't help me. It helps you stay ahead of that curve. Because eventually, after enough strange looks and awkward conversations, people start to figure it out. They learn the tram schedule. They stop asking for ranch. They drink their espresso standing at the bar like everyone else. And then they go home with stories about that time they accidentally committed a coffee crime in Italy.